on the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Stumped from Trent Bridge in Nottingham, where Australia have just beaten Bangladesh by 48 runs to go top of the group table in the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup. But that, my Stumped friends, is not the reason this show is special. Oh no, this is a very special edition of Stumped because I have sitting here right beside me, no longer separated by land and sea, my regular Stumped co-hosts Jim Maxwell and Charu Sharma. Welcome to you both.
Well, there's no chance we'll talk across each other now.
Well, I'll certainly try. But hey, it's wonderful to be here. You mentioned special. I think all editions are special, but it's nice to be together. I love the possibility and the opportunity of being together. Perhaps we should do it more than just once a year if possible. I know there are many other considerations, but it's great to be sitting across a table and be talking cricket rather than voices from distant lands.
We have met in some beautiful places, haven't we? Overlooking the Sydney Harbour Bridge, where we all met up previously. We rendezvoused in Delhi, so we now bring you to Nottingham. But Jim, you have been in some quite exotic places en route to Nottingham and the UK.
Yes, it wasn't quite the Gymkhana that we had a meeting with in Delhi, but it was certainly an opportunity to meet some friends of mine, particularly in Burgundy, where the cricket didn't escape me, nor Ash Barty winning the French Open.
Jim, the tournament is already 3 weeks old, though, so even though you did manage to catch some of it in France, along with a bit of Ash Barty, you did miss the rain, so that's good timing. But we think you've got a little bit of catching up to do. So for you and anyone else who might have missed a few bits of the World Cup, here's a taster of just what you've been missing.
Stokes takes an incredible one-handed catch.
Well, you have to smile. What a catch. It's going to take a lot to beat that in this World Cup.
Bangladesh have beaten South Africa, and South Africa not good enough.
This is a first upset of the World Cup.
Smith bobs up and down, waiting for O'Shane Thomas, and he gets flicked away. And brilliantly caught. Wonderful, wonderful cricket. Staggering take on the boundary edge. Sheldon Cottrell it was.
Warner gets to his 100. It's been a super innings. He's back on form. He leapt in the air with glee.
Root on 99. He's helping this one away. The cheers and the adulation right around the Hampshire Bowl for England's finest batsman.
Sharma gets it past extra cover. A punch of the gloves with him and the Indian captain. What a fine century.
That's pulled. There it is. Victory for Bangladesh. An absolutely sensational run chase.
Here it comes. There you go. The record-breaking 6 over DK's head, just for good measure. He watches it soar over his head and into the crowd. And Owen Morgan, therefore, moves into new territory as far as 6 hitting for England is concerned.
Oh yes, the dominance of England and India, the struggles of South Africa, and then that Ben Stokes catch. That feels like an absolute age ago already. Did that catch make many waves in France, Jim?
I'm not sure whether it did with the French, even if they're French cricketers, but it did with those of us that delved into the BBC highlights and the rest of it. It was spectacular. So was another one by that fella Cottrell,
yeah,
the West Indies. Yes.
Absolutely.
So there have been a few.
There have. Anyway, you have made it here now, and you've commentated on your first game, so you're up and running. And I tell you what, here at Trent Bridge, Bangladesh didn't fare too badly with the bat, but there were just, Charu, too many Aussie runs on the board for them to contend with, and that was due really to another David Warner century.
Well, yeah, I think his 6th over 150, so he scores big. And, of course, for him particularly, a very important moment. This entire World Cup, matter of fact, on his comeback. I'm sure Jim will have a couple of things to say about his comeback, but I'm really pleased that he has. Because, you know, when you do something that is not quite kosher and then you serve your time, you know, once you do your dues, and you have to be allowed a second chance. And I'm glad that he has, because he certainly turned up here along with Steve Smith. But it was sort of a David-Goliath contest, wasn't it? Even physically so, because the Bangladeshi is about half the size of the average Australian in the park.
But they had the most support here today, didn't they?
They did. It was all green and with that little red dot too. So, yeah, I mean, Australia, of course, far too strong for Bangladesh. This was possibly Bangladesh's final opportunity of trying to make the final 4. So they're not likely to. We'll talk more about that later. Still, a gallant effort in the chase. You might argue 48 runs is a lot. But the way they got about their chase, and I think it was a wonderful attempt. And little Mushfiqur's 102 not out, very anchoring it. But you've got to say, this is, as was talked about earlier, perhaps the golden age of Bangladesh one-day international cricket.
I'm going to bring in Jim on the David Warner question in a moment, because let's hear from Warner, because speaking after his 166, he said he was happy to make up for lost time.
Yeah, look, I'm getting on a little bit, but we're just trying to make up for that year off, and coming out here, and I hit a lot of fielders. I did it last game as well, so I think the wicket was a bit on the tad of the slower side, so just trying to make the most of it and hang in there.
So that's back-to-back centuries for David Warner then at this World Cup. So, Jim, back at the time of the ball tampering scandal, you were very critical of Warner and openly questioned whether he could ever wear the green and gold again. He's served his time in terms of the ban. Is it a case of forgive and move on in your eyes now?
To a degree. I think there are a lot of Australians who still feel sick in the stomach about the whole business. And although there's some redemption going on here, you can see from the way Warner's playing that he's trying to make sure that he gets runs all the time. And I think his elbow is probably curbing him in the way that makes him concentrate and be a little less exotic than he may normally be. I was asking Phil Long to give me some comparative analysis on his strike rate, which is 95 coming into the World Cup, which is 80 now in this World Cup. So he's playing a little within himself, perhaps because of the injury, perhaps because he's chastened, very much so. And he's got a point to prove, and the best way he can do that is with his bat. He knows that some of his past indiscretions have been because he's led with his chin or his lip. But if he just does it with his bat as he's been advised, he's doing an excellent job for his team. And although Australia's playing a little out of character in the way it's going about its batting at the moment, that's because they haven't really worked out what is their best batting order. I think you'll find that with the quality of their pace attack, and perhaps if Nathan Lyon ever gets a game, they'll have a very well-balanced attack, which could be better than anyone else's attack when we get to the pointy end of this competition.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Let's move on to India, Charu, because their juggernaut seems to roll on. They're still unbeaten. But for the rest of the tournament, they're going to have to do without this man.
Zampa bowls and driven beautifully by Dhawan for 4. Straight past short extra cover, no chance for Aaron Finch to cut that off. It was width from Zampa, and Dhawan's in too good a nick.
That's India opener Shikhar Dhawan, ruled out for the rest of the World Cup with a broken thumb, replaced in the squad by Rishabh Pant. A lot of people were of the mind that Pant should have been in the squad in the first place. He is here now, although, of course, at the expense of Dhawan, who has played a big role in India's journey up to this tournament. But, Charu, when you first arrived in the country, you were straight to Manchester, straight to India v Pakistan. What a mammoth match that was. And hey, they didn't have Dhawan then, and they did okay.
Yeah, forget about Dhawan. Let's get to the India-Park match. Wow, it really lit up the World Cup, and the atmosphere at Old Trafford was just unforgettable. Wasn't much of a match eventually, but back to Dhawan, India will miss him badly, because it's not just that he was in great form, scored a wonderful century, it's just that right-left combination at the top of two very experienced players knowing each other's game really well. And I think India will miss that consistency and solidity. But, of course, there is some justice after all, because Rishabh Pant gets called in. And Shikhar Dhawan, what a shame that he will not recover in time. There is a bit of dilemma for India now about when to play Rishabh Pant. But it looks like with the next couple of matches, which are not likely to test India hugely, maybe it's a good time to get Rishabh Pant straight in. And you feel bad for somebody like, say, Vijay Shankar, who is this multi-dimensional player who can give India maybe 5-6 overs easily, and also is a very good fielder, reasonably good bat. He is likely to be the one who will make way for Rishabh Pant, because I also think he's picked up a bit of a niggle in the nets. And Pant is here, give him a shot as quickly as possible. But India will miss Shikhar Dhawan. Full marks to KL Rahul, mind you, because he then, of course, came and opened, and there were two right-handers. There was a lot of pressure on Rahul, because had he failed, people would have said, well, see, he doesn't quite have the same caliber. But they did very well against Pakistan, both Rahul and, of course, Rohit Sharma.
Indeed. Jim, are India the team to beat, or have England now planted themselves right up there now after the way they demolished Afghanistan the other day? And Owen Morgan has now come to the fore as another range hitter in the England side. Who would have thought he had it in him to hit 17 sixes?
Well, India and England are the form teams of this competition. But as we've been saying for some time, when you have semi-finals where it's life or death, anything can occur. That's when upsets can happen. So as well as they're playing, yes, they'll be in the semi-finals. Clearly Australia and probably New Zealand. It's not quite set in stone that way, but it's looking like it the more we go. And it could be crucial as to who finishes one, because one plays 4 and 2 plays 3. I don't know whether that's going to make a big difference. But yes, they're the form teams. And from an Australian perspective, they'll be very happy that England and India are the teams they're talking about and not Australia. Even though Australia happened to have won the World Cup 5 times and been and 2 finals.
They're probably thinking about the Ashes now.
And have never missed a final if they've played in the semi-finals.
One team, though, perhaps flying slightly under the radar, of course, are New Zealand, and they are the other unbeaten team alongside India. So, yeah, semi-finals are beckoning for them as well. This week, they were involved in one of the closest finishes of the tournament, one of these old-fashioned, low-scoring pot boilers. It was against South Africa, and it simmered to a fantastically exciting climax, with New Zealand winning with 3 balls to spare, and Captain Kane Williamson steered them home quite brilliantly with his 100. He's competing with Eoin Morgan for the coolest captain, maybe, because he just kept his head wonderfully, and just precision, and he was incisive and knew exactly what he needed to do. Charu, I gather you've been speaking to one of Williamson's teammates.
Yes, the man with the best seat in the house, Mitch Santner, because he had just walked in towards the end of the match. And let me set the stage for you. Remember, in the last over, they needed 8 from only 6 deliveries. And guess who was facing, having just come in? Mitch Santner. So what were his thoughts to begin with?
With his glasses on as well, which I love.
At that very point, it was pretty tense. And that's what we began by talking to him about.
It was one of those wickets where it was obviously tough for the guys starting, and like you said, under that kind of high pressure situation and stuff like that, you can, I think the worst case scenario there if I slogged out and we lost another wicket. But it was a big boundary to the leg side, and I was trying to hit it hard into a gap, maybe at 2, 4 or 1 if lucky. And then obviously the Kane, the genius he is, he slogged that one 7 off 5 is still a niggly target. So to get that back to 1 off 4 makes it a bit easier.
Williamson lifts it for 6. He lifts it for 6 into the Hollis stand. It's 100 for Kane Williamson, and it's just about victory for New Zealand. The scores are level, and what a brilliant innings that has been from New Zealand's captain.
Well, he doesn't look flustered at all out there. It was obviously one of those wickets where, there was going to be a few dots. It was quite slow. He looked like he might have been getting a little bit frustrated at times, but I guess that's the class of the man. He got through that period and then managed to get a fantastic 100 and get the lads over the line. So, that's just a testament to how good he is and how good he is under pressure.
So that's Mitchell Santner. Can New Zealand win it?
This could be New Zealand's 1983 moment of India, where they have so many players who are, I can't say bits and pieces, but they have a lot of all-rounders. They have a lot of grit. We know that they are one of the best fielding units in the world. So potentially, of course, this could be their World Cup, and they could sneak in from behind. I just have 2 points which we haven't seen just yet. So one, I think they still have to play serious opposition during the league stage, because the India match was washed out, so we don't know what could have happened
serious
there.
Pace.
A serious pace. They need to face Australia, need to face England. So those 2 encounters might give us a much better inkling of how they are likely to do later. Secondly, of course, this is the league phase. They've started out really well. So in a sense, they've got very little pressure here on. When the pressure kicks in with the knockout, I wonder if that is suddenly going to make them play a different brand of cricket and not quite as freely as they're playing now. They may be unbeaten so far, but they still have to face their serious tests yet.
I think if you had a choice, you'd want to be playing against New Zealand in the semis, right? So England, if they top the table, probably play New Zealand, and India and Australia the other. Whichever way
one
it
of those
goes,
gets taken out of the equation.
I think New Zealand would be, to me, it'd be the weaker link of the 4 in the semi-finals, and that's assuming that 4 will be there. But that's what it looks like.
Well, I'm going to quickly intervene and talk about topping the table. Sorry, who's beaten Australia so far, Jim? I forget. In this World Cup. So that team might have something to say about finishing right on top. Well, we'll see. I think the 30th of June is a very big day when India play England.
You don't need any more washouts. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we're talking about these top 4 teams like it is already sewn up, and it sort of feels like it is. But that brings me to the format of the World Cup. In all likelihood, we could have 2 weeks of group games where the top 4 is sort of already decided. And it might be about jostling for position, but does a format need more jeopardy than what we've got in this World Cup?
Yeah, tell me something. Is there a reserve day for a semi-final?
Yes, for semi-finals and final only.
Only one day?
Yeah.
Right, otherwise it's the top team that goes through.
I believe so.
If it was 2 days of rain. Mm-hmm. Right, okay, I'm just sort of surmising. So India need to be finishing number 1, don't they?
They might not be planning on, but I think they have the goods. Man to man, there are very few weaknesses. I think they have the best attack, but we're digressing. In terms of format, can I add my 2-bit here? Because
yes,
I think the lesser teams, if I can use that term in this competition, haven't done the world of cricket much good because, unfortunately, they are not contesting for a place in the Final Four.
I think we all thought that Afghanistan would produce an upset at some point.
We'll get back to that. Yeah. But, that's a bit of a shame because this gives the cricket authorities perhaps an indication that the World Cup should not be extended. But I still feel that, to me, it should go to 12 at least, perhaps 14 like it was once. 2 groups of 7. The top 4 in each group make it to the quarterfinals. I think there'll be a lot of interest all the way through. But that would mean including more teams. And I know already Afghanistan and a couple others have ensured that might be a bit of a distance away. But that, to me, would be the best kind of World Cup. But I would still like to contend, maybe I sound a little old-fashioned here, but the ICC 50-over World Cup is, to me, the apex. And I hope that the ICC will continue treating it like that.
Which is curious because in England, as of the 2020 season, there will be no top-level domestic 50-over cricket played because it's being relegated to a development competition in the light of a new 100
World Cup.
Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped on All India Radio. Next week, we've got another special for you. The 3 of us are getting together at a cricket club in Manchester after the India-West Indies game, and we'll be joined by a live audience and some special guests, so don't miss that. But for now, it's time to say thank you to Jim Maxwell and Charu Sharma, and thanks to you for listening. See you soon from Trent Bridge. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you again soon.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.